Let's start the process of developing our block entity for Gem Cleaner. Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Welcome to the Mentor Code Lab. Normally when you see people talking about the process of developing a machine, they start with the block entity, they add the inventory there, and they do everything. And after they finished with the code, they come back and develop the user interface for that block entity. However, in my experience as a mod developer, it would be easier and it would be better if you generate your user interface first. This will give you an idea of what will be there inside the block entity and what will the block entity do with different sections of itself, and at any time, if you got lost in your own code, you can come back to that user interface as a reference. So how do we start developing a user interface? You go into the Minecraft merge source under textures and GUI, the folder called container. And of course, we have blocks, we have items, anything that you can use. And you start with finding a good base solution for yourself. In this case, there is this generic underline 54, and I will copy that texture holding Control C, coming back up to my own resources under GUI container. I will hit Control V, and I will say that this is generic blank. Okay. Now for generic blank, I will right click and say open in Explorer. Don't pay attention to anything else here. These are temporary. I'm doing some R&D at the same time. And then I will open this generic 54 with any texture editing application. In my opinion, Photoshop is something that will make your life much easier. However, I had seen people using GIMP very successfully and other applications at the same time, and all of them are good. The very first thing I want to do is to zoom in and get rid of these slots. However, I will keep one of them. So I will copy this section and not the top row, holding Alt. I will remove that from selection. I will hit Control X, Control V, and it will be an empty slot separated in a new folder. However, you notice that that didn't happen. If that is the case, go back and check your image mode. If you are indexed, move it to RGB. So I will hit Control C, Control V, and now I have this empty slot in the place. After I separated that one, I want to get this section that are the background, Control C in the main layer, Control C, Control V, and I will move it up, and I will duplicate it, move it up. Then I will select these two layers, duplicate layers, and move them up. Holding all four layers, duplicate them, move them up, and take note that I remove the whole slot background, okay? This is possibly the biggest GUI that we can use vertically without tweaking the scale of GUI in the game. So I will merge the layers that I selected, and now if I turn on the slot, I have the slot. Now that I have that, I can go on and figure how I want to show the GUI. Now I will move it to somewhere close to this layer, and I will move it up. Somewhere around here is good. Then I will duplicate it, and I will move it down, maybe around here. I don't know, I'm not sure. Then I have other elements that I got from Minecraft sources, and this one is an arrow. I will paste it there. I will move it in between them. I have another one, and actually if you don't have it, I will teach you how to create it. You can just take a slot and cut it half, move half of it on top, and then choose few rows of pixels and then just duplicate them until you fill this gap. And I do want it to be somewhere in between, something like that. However, I'm not sure. Then I have this thing, and this thing is coming from, I think, the brewing table. I will paste it, but I want to move that in a very specific order. First of all, I want it to be on the top. I will move it to the edge, a little bit toward the bottom, and this will be my way of saying that, hey, I'm gonna add the fluid from here into this tank. This is a fluid tank. So I have this section done. The other section would be to have a connection tube. Again, if you look around, you will find these pieces from the normal vanilla textures. I just cheated and cut them from the original texture into separate files. So you see that it's just that. This is the tube, and this is the tank, and this one is the arrow, so on and so forth. Now that I have them, I will have one more copy of these two slots, moving them toward right, but then I have to move each one of them until I get them to the place. So this will be a connection of top to bottom. Then I have a progress arrow, again, from vanilla GUIs, Control C, Control V, and move it in place. So the idea is that I will have a field progress bar, and it's just again an arrow that came from the GUI. However, if I move it on top of this one and if I cut it to half like so, it will become the progress bar that goes from top to bottom and shows the finishing process of the product. Okay, so I will take it, move it to the outside, and now you don't see a transparent layer. Here is a trick that I use. I move a layer, an empty layer, all the way to the bottom like so. So this is an empty layer. I will choose a very sharp color that I normally don't use. For example, something like red, and I will fill that empty layer with red. This is a temp layer. I will delete it later. However, now if I zoom here, I can easily identify my pixels, and I can say that, hey, I want 1 pixel gap from maybe the border, or I may not want that. I can completely put them together side by side, and that is our GUI. You will notice 2 things. First, I have this empty layer at the bottom. Second, I have this empty layer at the right hand side. Here's the thing. I have few textures that I can add, and I will show you how to utilize them. This is for a fluid tank, and then this is for the energy. Now, where did I get them? Are from old, very old actually, mods for Forge, something like Industrial Craft, and then I don't know, if I remember correctly, it was the holy moly mechanism and things like these mods. So right now I'm trying to find this connector. Okay, that's the connector, and these 2 are the slots. So this one and this one, and I want to move them side by side with the arrow, that should be this one, to somewhere out of the way. Okay, then I will come back to the fluid tank texture. I will copy this section, go back to here, I will paste it, and I will move it into the place. So this should go all the way back to the bottom, and this way I will make sure that I place it properly. Then I will choose these guys and move them back into place. Now I'm sure that I'm looking at the proper section. I will move them a little bit lower, and finally I will try to figure some things like visually, I mean. So this is the arrow, this is the arrow. I will keep them hidden. This is my GUI. So I will select all of them, turn it on, and before I move them, actually, I want to add this energy background because that's a critical thing. So Control C, Control V, and this is our energy. So yeah, we can move it a little bit farther toward this direction, and then select the others and move them a little bit toward this direction, and then finally select all of them with the arrow, move them down. Okay, so that, yeah, we are somewhere around there, and getting the arrow, moving it back to its place like so. Now what about the top row? We don't need that. Well, remember we have an arrow there, so just keep that. I will come back and select these from top, Control X, Control V, and I will move it in place. So this will be the top row. Makes sense? Then I don't need the rest from the background. So from the background, I will remove that part, delete, Control D. And again, I need to move these a little bit down so that they sit in place almost. Finally, I will select everything except that white arrow and move them up until I touch the top border. And this will be my new GUI. However, remember, we have 2 more things to add. One of them is this gadget for the fluid tank. So I will Control C it. I will Control V and move it in place. And I will make sure that it's right in the center. I think it's in the center. Yep. And finally, the field energy bar, I will take it, Control C, Control V, and I will make sure that it's actually in the proper position. Move 1 above, and that would be our energy. However, I can't keep it as it is. I will move my field energy out of the way into the proper position on the arrow, like so, and I will move this one again out of the way into a proper position like so. Okay, before doing that, I will keep them there. I will select the gadget, I will duplicate it, and then I will move the duplicated one to the side. Maybe, I don't know, instead of the fluid bar, it will be there. And then again, the energy bar, I want to duplicate it and move this one out of the way like so. Why did I do that? Of course, now I need to turn off the background. The reason I keep these 2 here here is that these are temp files. So I will move them toward the top, this one and this one, make a group out of them, and I will call it temp. This will let me to hide them, and at the same time, when I need to position things properly in future by the code, I can turn them on and take the note of, for example, coordinates of this single pixel here. So I know that, okay, if I want to move things and draw them, this is the pixel, or in this case, this is the top pixel that I want to start drawing, stuff like that. This will be my reference. Right now, I know that I have an interface that should accept buckets of fluid and put the empty bucket down. Then it has a fluid container, an energy container, a slot for the raw ingredient, a slot for the output result, and a progress bar. Okay, do I want to have a progress bar to empty the fluid? No, it's just there to demonstrate that this is a tube. So this is where your fluid should go in. However, I'm missing something. That something is an indication of where the fluid bucket is. Again, these are the textures that you can find inside vanilla Minecraft. So I will move it there. I can leave it as it is, or if I want to, I can play with the blending and see what is the best one. So I will play overlay, maybe, maybe not. We have the soft light, hard light. Okay, let's see. I will go between hard light and normal. So this is normal, this is hard light. Okay, let's duplicate it, it's easier. And put it at hard light, put this one at normal. So this is normal, this is hard light. I don't know. I will go with normal actually. Okay, so that's the bucket. Again, the bucket is not the temp. So this will be my final GUI. Now, again, I have two options. Normally, you would see that people will merge all of these layers together and make it one single layer and then export it as PNG. But there is another option to it. We can put each one of these elements into their own files, and then when we are gonna draw the background, draw the foreground, we can draw them one after another in the places that we want, so that this background thing will be completed. It's up to you. There is a little bit of a difference there. If you compile this into one single PNG file and you draw it in the industry for game development, we say that it will cause a one draw call because it's drawing one thing at a time. However, if we dissect it into different things, for example, if I have a slot and I want to draw all these slots one after another, it means that we have 36 draw calls just for the slots. The 37th will be the background, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, and then we will have 49, 50, 51. 51 draw calls just to draw the proper inventory in runtime. If we combine all of this into one background, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 draw calls. It may not look like a big thing, yes, because in 3D games, for example, a platformer game that is 3D, we may have 10,000 or 100,000 draw calls, and you will not see even a single draw page on the frame per second. However, this is Minecraft. It's not a very powerful 3D engine, so it's up to you actually. In my opinion, it's a good thing to just export this as a single container, and let's call it gem cleaner, and at the same time I will save this as a Photoshop on the root of project under resources, Photoshop, and this will be gem cleaner. This way in the game I will have a single PNG, but whenever I need to access the elements, I have them in the Photoshop file, so I can just open it and do whatever I want. Now if I come back here inside the containers, reload from this, now I have the gem cleaner. Opening it, you see that it's a totally transparent file. Don't worry about the dark image, it's just the background of the user interface, and this is our gem cleaner PNG container GUI for our block. Now that we have this, we can move forward and start working with the block entity. My first order of business is that in the next video I will try to open this GUI on the block entity when I right click on that block entity. Of course, when I start working on my other libraries like GUI, I will not go with this approach. Actually, in GUI, I will have elements one at a time. Of course, for the player, I will have a bunch of them at one row because they are always the same thing. However, I will address each one of these elements one after another as a separate part of the GUI, and you can combine them as pieces of puzzle on the rendering pass. I don't care if it's 50 or 100 draw callbacks because, as I said, your GPU should be able to handle hundreds and thousands and hundred thousands of draw calls. And let's face it, when you open the GUI on Minecraft, I don't think you even are causing 1,000 draw calls. I'm not sure, but I think it's less than 1,000 or 2,000 draw calls. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on that bell so that when I publish a new video, you will get informed. Have fun, everyone. Bye.